Supporting Comprehension with Scaffolding and Close Reading. This presentation briefly introduces scaffolding and close reading as approaches to supporting reading comprehension. Both of these ideas are built on the understanding of learning as involved is a gradual release of responsibility. In other words, the teaching that we do moves from being very teacher regulated, where we are modeling it, we are perhaps doing think alouds about how we think when we read a text, we are demonstrating it. There's a lot of teacher-centered, teacher-regulated learning activities happening. But then progressively over time, those activities become less and less teacher regulated and more student regulated. And this moving from teacher regulated to student regulated is that gradual release of responsibility on the part of the teacher. So in the beginning, we are modeling and giving much explicit instruction on what it is we want the students to learn. Then we design activities where they work together in groups or they do things with us, etc. And they are practicing the activities. And then they come to the point where we can remove the support structures and the support activities, and they can do these activities, these reading, these writing, these literacy activities on their own. Another way that this is sometimes described is I do, referring to teacher, then you do, referring to the students, and then, or we do, referring to the students working with each other and working with the teacher, and then finally you do. So I do, we do, you do. Another way to look at gradual release of responsibility. And both scaffolding and close reading work on this idea. So first of all, what is scaffolding? So the idea of scaffolding reading or supporting reading comprehension is very much built on the architectural understanding of scaffolding, which is a temporary structure that is placed around a building to hold it up while it is building either higher or while it is being repaired, etc. So that concept then applied in literacy is that it is a set of instructional activities that are meant to support development of reading and writing. So as a student is developing and advancing in their reading and writing, oftentimes it is through our temporary support structures that we have that allow them to grow in their reading abilities. So in the beginning, when it's very teacher-centered, there's lots of scaffolding activities around these reading and literacy abilities. But then as they progressively move to being independent, you take the scaffolding away and then they are freestanding, or they are able to do the activities independently. So that's basically what the idea of scaffolding comes from, is this architectural term. So scaffolding is really about supporting the reading of a text throughout the process. You're supporting it before reading, before the students even see the text. You're providing various instructional activities to establish a purpose for reading, activate their prior knowledge, to give them a preview of what's to come, to help them focus and determine importance, etc. Maybe that's teacher demonstrations, think alouds, but much thought and attention is put into what's happening before reading. Also during reading, we don't just give them a text and leave, but how do we maybe break up the text? How do we chunk and chew the text? How do we give them different supports to do while they're reading the text, whether they're doing that in school or at home? So the during reading activities to help them stay focused and hopefully gain insight into what it is you want them to understand. And then after reading, what do you do after they read the text to help them summarize their understanding, synthesize their understanding, apply it in other cases, connect across context? These are the learning activities that we have after reading. And so scaffolding is really about applying various support activities before, during, and after reading. And oftentimes it's reading the text just one time. So all these activities happen during a single reading of the text, which is different from close reading. So close reading, on the other hand, is multiple readings of a text. So it's a close analytical reading of a complex text. And it's really meant to uncover sophisticated, layered understandings. So it's encouraging students to read and reread a text deliberately. So not all texts that you are reading in the class would be appropriate for close reading. So if you're showing your students a short clip from The Simpsons animation to kind of introduce a topic or generate discussion to build prior knowledge, you're not going to do a close reading, multiple 3, 4 readings of that video, watching it multiple times. So close readings are often done with very complex texts that are within, of course, the text complexity band of your students, but texts that need to have this more draft-based reading where you read it once for this, you read it this a second time for this, and a third time for this. And maybe that's only reading a paragraph or 2 paragraphs of a very complex text. But close reading differs then from scaffolding in that it's multiple readings of a text. So there isn't perhaps as many activities that are done before a text. Maybe there's very little that's done before the text, but the first reading of that text has a specific purpose. So in the purpose of the first reading, maybe you're just annotating the text. Maybe you're having the students just circle words they don't understand. Maybe you want them to just have a general sense of what the text is about from that first reading. And then maybe after that first reading, you do a short activity based on just what you wanted that first purpose or that first draft of the reading to be. Then the second reading has a different purpose. Then you can usually go deeper into it because they've been exposed to the text already. You can have them pay attention to tone, syntax, bias. You can have them be looking at some of the purpose and agenda of the author items. And then maybe your third reading is having them do some more advanced activities like connection across texts, maybe more critical alternative readings, or perhaps some critical analysis. Or maybe you're having them start thinking about how they want to create their own argument from this text. Now, I have these listed here as different things that you might do for a first, second, or third reading. The purpose that you would have for each of the readings would be very dependent on what you're wanting to do with the text. What are your content goals with having the students read the text? What are your thinking goals, etc.? So I just put these here as an example of how you could take a text, read it multiple times, and have very different purposes with increasing difficulty for each reading. So while scaffolding is often a single reading of a text and with multiple activities before, during, and after, a close reading will be multiple readings of a text with fewer activities before and after, because those activities are then spread out through the multiple readings of the text. So whether you do a scaffolded reading or a close reading may very much depend on what it is you're trying to accomplish. But I wanted to introduce these two concepts because we are going to be doing, in this class, you're going to be creating a scaffolded reading lesson with some text that you choose from your text set. And so depending on what the text is and what you want to do, you might want to take a close reading approach to that. So I just wanted to introduce these different concepts depending on what your goals are. It may make it more clear which one you might want to choose. So I have here some examples that you can view. These are just short vignettes from a classroom. This is a short video of a social studies teacher who is scaffolding a single reading of a text. So she has multiple activities that she does before reading the text. Then they do activities during reading the text and then after reading the text. It does a really good job of modeling the I do, we do, you do gradual release of responsibility of a teacher. So I encourage you to watch that for an example. And then I also have here an example of close reading and what close reading in the classroom might look like. And here we have a chemistry teacher who's demonstrating, she demonstrates how she uses close reading in her chemistry classroom. In fact, they read Obama's speech on the environment multiple times. And for each time they read the text, that she has a specific purpose of what she wants them to do with the text. And it's very geared towards what her content goals are. And she's really trying to get them to focus on acid rain. And he talks about acid rain in the speech, etc. So really nice examples of what this actually looks like. So some concrete examples to connect to these concepts. And there are some additional resources that you may want to look at, additional vignettes in different types of classrooms and how close reading is being used. Some more examples of scaffolding in the classroom and how you might use that. But hopefully this just introduces you to these different approaches to supporting comprehension as you are starting to think about what you might want to do for your scaffolding project, which isn't due until November, but I wanted you to be exposed to these different approaches. Please let me know if you have any other questions, but this week you'll really be focusing on what to do before reading.